Shanna, how you doing?
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, what would be most helpful today?
Thank you. Thanks for meeting with me. I was so excited to kind of get a time with you. I
Hmm.
am about a year, not quite a year, more like 10 months into practice.
Okay.
Um, and I've really latched onto your program, right? When people are like, well, how did you do this? Or how did you figure out this? I'm like, it's all abundance practice building. Like, it's like no original content. It's just all you. I appreciate that so much.
Yay, thank you.
Um, so I feel like a good place to spend time today would be this like marketing rut that I'm feeling.
Okay.
And a little bit of like a niche rut
Hmm.
because I've been licensed for 20 some years. I did some
Hmm.
original like agency work, um, and worked with victims of crime in an agency, and then spent a lot of time in schools as a high school counselor for alternative kids, and then I ran a program for homeless students. So I did some admin stuff, and then kind of like was ready for a change, went into private practice. So I started off with this kind of niche that felt, I think, a little roomy, right?
Hmm.
Like I really like to work with people and get them back into things that make them successful, part of their community is doing what they need to do. And
Hmm.
so my niche, I think, is was something like I work with people who are having problems that are like getting in the way of school and work,
Hmm.
which I know is not super formed. I'd never had it
Yeah.
like really formed, but that's what I would kind of tell people. My caseload is like pretty diverse. I see about 20, anywhere from like 18 to 22 people a week, which is
Hmm.
kind of like maybe I'd like to go like a little bit less.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of my clients do have stuff that's like they come in like my adults feeling like burned out from work, which I love. I love working with educators. I love working with people who are a little like um and helping them kind of get excited about things again,
Hmm.
right? Are you
Yeah.
there?
I'm here. Can
Did
you
you
see me?
freeze?
Hear me? Oh, I might have frozen on your end. I'm here and I'm hearing you.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Hmm.
Okay. I see you back. And I also love getting kids back in school. So I end up with like this like a lot of anxiety. And so now when people are like, what do you specialize in? I say, I kind of restate my original niche and say like I end up like with a lot of kids who have anxiety. I end up with like a lot of kids who are afraid of throwing up, right? This like
Hmm.
OCD presentation. Um, and I'm like diving in, I'm learning all about it, but I do feel like without this like strong niche, then like I don't know where to go with marketing. I end up like
Yeah.
I'm posting some like stuff about like mental health quotes in general, right?
Hmm.
I
Which
have a
it's just
full,
wasting your time, really,
yeah,
honestly.
I mean, I think I have a full caseload because I'm like pretty well connected.
Yeah, because networking works.
Yeah,
Like you built a
networking.
reputation. Hmm.
Yes, I grew up around like 20 minutes from here. I went to college and grad school around here. Like all my internships and jobs have been around here. So like I have a ton of different referral sources,
Hmm.
but I'm kind of feeling like my marketing sucks.
Got it. Well, let's amp it up. I mean, like you said, the niche is going to be the very first piece to that.
Mhm.
Um, because when you say like, something's interfering with work or school, I'm like, well, yeah, that's the diagnostic criteria for literally everything in the DSM, right?
I'd like
So,
to get people like back doing what they like to do and like
yeah,
good.
well,
Yeah.
you like the result. They're looking
Hmm.
first for the pain. So let's figure out the pain specifically that leads to people not functioning in the way that they want and need to. The problem that like lights you up the most. So you've talked about like kids with anxiety, for instance. And your eyes just did a thing when I said that too.
Yeah.
So
There's a ton of it.
yeah, ton
Yeah.
of it. Do you love it? Or are you like, Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah. I think I love it, right? I don't think I would love working with exclusively with it, which I know,
Right.
and like you say, like you won't work exclusively with it, but like I even love like these like kind of rotten teenagers, right? That like
Hmm.
aren't doing everything they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But I could not have a whole caseload of them because
Right.
like their sessions literally like take all of my energy out of me.
Hmm.
Um, so yes, I do work, and I think most of them have some sort of anxiety. So yes, anxiety.
Hmm.
I
Well, and
say
I
that
think
I'm feeling
like,
a little wishy-washy about it.
yeah, like this so-called rotten teenagers, right? Like they, I love that. Like I picture Grease for some reason.
Right.
Dating me a little bit.
Yeah.
But
No, I can sing it all.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about how if they probably aren't identifying it as anxiety, right? Their parents are the ones looking for it because they're misbehaving. They're not doing what's expected or wanted of them. But if kind of the through line between your anxious kids and your kids who are getting in trouble is that they're not attending school regularly, then that could be your niche.
Little terrified of school anxiety and avoidance as a niche, and I've kind of played around with it. Like I just did a space training.
Mhm.
Um, that was over a couple days over Easter. I just feel like it's so hard.
Okay, then let's not do that. We don't want
Yeah,
hard. We
it's so
want
like
like joyful and hmm.
yeah, it's just a little bit like I worry that I don't have something that works.
Right, because it's not a quick fix.
No.
Yeah.
And I've worked with a couple kids and we've gotten them back in school and it's like been really great. But I worry that like I haven't totally figured it out. And so it's
Hmm.
hard for me to like
Yeah.
niche or market in something that I feel like, oh, this is a solution and I can really help with this because I'm afraid that sometimes I can't.
Hmm. Yeah. I want you confident at work. Like
Mhm.
we all have moments of imposter syndrome, even if we've been treating the same problem for 20 years. We'll have a moment of it, but I don't want it to be like a daily situation. Um, so
I think there's a difference between like what I see in like the little kids or like teenagers that are kind of like avoiding some things and like that school avoidance,
right.
right? Like that like
Hmm.
I can't get my foot in the door.
Right. Like I've got a tummy ache that's based on anxiety. And then the parents are like, well, off to school you go. Sorry about that, versus
Yeah,
refusing.
right. Yeah.
Um, okay. So what about, I'm thinking about like parents are the ones looking for the therapist. So what if it's more based on the parents' experience of their kids? Whether it's like they don't, like they feel like they don't know how to help their kid. And then you can break that down into a few different presentations. So, like, your kid is anxious all the time. They don't always know they're anxious, and it took you a minute to figure out that they're anxious, but now you realize that so much of their behavior is based on anxiety. Or your kid's getting into trouble and you don't feel like you have the supports to get them back on track. Or if there's another one, like if you enjoy parent coaching or you enjoy like the grown-up version of either of those things, then you could also talk about that. But I think,
That was one thing I really latched onto, I think early on in watching your content was
mhm,
this idea of like, and maybe because I like the idea that it made my niche a little like roomier, but this idea of this problem and how it looks throughout the lifespan.
mhm, yeah,
Right, this like anxiety that shows up in childhood could sometimes be this like negative self-talk in adulthood, right? Like that
mhm,
um gets people from kind of where they want to be.
yeah. So, I mean, what if we framed it as anxiety? So like there's the obvious kid anxiety, like once the parents like, oh, this is anxiety. I need to get therapy for my kid. That one's more obvious. You can frame the rotten teenagers as anxiety as well, because so often it is of like teenagers are under pressures we were never under, like social media, all these kinds of things. Like it's a different world for them. And sometimes the way they manage that different world is to act in ways that we hate, and like to list some of what you like to work with those kids, so that those parents can see their kids in it. And then adults with anxiety, where the anxiety is getting in the way of like their confidence at work, their confidence in relationships. But I think you got to be really specific about the daily lived experience of the parent of anxious kids, the parent of rotten teenagers, and the daily lived experience of the adult. Like I imagine like your website having three columns basically. Like you have your hero image at the very top, you have um, like your tagline essentially, and then three different columns or like photos with some words that they can link to the specialty page.
Yeah,
Um,
so right now I have like I think like an adults with anxiety like page, and then like children and teens.
I'd split up the children and teens if their presentation is so different.
Mhm. Yeah, and even this, and I don't mean to like make it more complicated, but even like the teens presentation is so different too, because sometimes they are not doing what they're supposed to do,
Hmm.
or sometimes they're doing everything they're supposed to do,
Hmm.
right? And they're driving themselves into this like anxious,
Yep.
um,
What if you frame that as like teenagers off the rails because they're going too far one side and the other?
yeah.
And you can talk about how like on the surface, the kid who is like stressing out about getting all A's feels like a much nicer problem to have than the
Yeah.
experience that other parents are having. But that the lived experience of that kind of compulsion and stress can be just as difficult as a parent.
Okay. And so you're okay with it, or are you just going along with it that I have like three different populations here? But are
There,
you
I mean,
okay
it's
with that?
all anxiety.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
like, as long as the presenting concern is really solid and you talk about the experience of anxiety, and if there's a particular kind of anxiety you like best that is across the lifespan, then I would definitely talk about that. Um, because I generally feel less attached to the demographic than I do the problem when it comes to niche. But you can't have like an across the lifespan niche without like an actual niche, like a problem. And anxiety, I mean, it's got its own heading in the DSM. It works. So,
A little bit more like a diagnosis, right? So is
mhm.
the problem then the presenting problem like they can't manage, they aren't, the anxiety that's getting in the way of success or happiness? Not happiness, but something like that.
Maybe, yeah, you could frame it as like anxiety is getting in the way of success and sometimes just functioning. So, like, I think about those little kids who are just now realizing, like, those families who are just realizing that's anxiety, or the person who, like, stays plateaued in their career because they don't feel confident enough to do the presentations they need to do to move up, those kinds of things.
I feel like I can work with this.
Yeah. And that means the specialty pages, like, you really need to go hard on the lived experience. So talk about when you have your kids with anxiety, all the different ways that that shows up for them, how that shows up for them socially, how it shows up for them physically, how it shows up for their dynamic with their parent. And remember, you're talking to the parents in all of this. So you can come from that perspective of like, how do these worried parents describe what's happening at home when they first call you? And then same for the teenager, like teenagers off the rails. You can say, like, your first paragraph can say, like, I end up treating teenagers on both sides of off the rails, basically. Like, and then go deeper into each and the parent experience of each with empathy for the kid interspersed throughout. And then the adult, like, get really clear on that ideal adult, really clear. Is it a parent? Is it like the mom trying to keep everything together in the family while also being the breadwinner, while maybe dealing with a teenager who is off the rails in one way, um, who was once that kid with anxiety and never got help for it, and this is how it's manifested as they age and go through life experiences.
Can I incorporate work in there a little bit? Because
For
it seems to be
sure.
like what I have, right?
Hmm.
Like burned out.
And like, what do you do when you're burned out, but like you can't stop doing your job? You know, like you're so anxious and so exhausted, and you have to keep going. There's no out for you.
I feel like I can play around with it a little bit. I think I have some of it already on the website, but I think this will help to like really clear it up.
Hmm.
Um, and get very specific.
Hmm.
And I think some of my marketing stuff, I'd really like to, this sounds a little bit like self-serving, I think a little bit, but
Okay.
I'd really like to be like seen as an expert in
Yeah.
something, right? Like I have insurance based. I take three insurances. I have like a threshold, like I won't take an insurance underneath
Hmm.
um like 105, I think is the lowest insurance reimbursement. In Akron, I'm in Akron, Ohio. So there are a lot of private pay therapists, but I'm not one of them. Right? I
Hmm.
have like probably about 20% private pay because I don't
Hmm.
take their insurance and they decide to pay anyway.
Yeah.
I think eventually that's probably like a direction for me,
Okay.
maybe. But more important than that, I just want to be like an expert in
Hmm.
something, right?
Well, and I made the assumption that you were taking insurance because you don't have a niche and you're full.
Uh-huh.
So I think like if you want to get off insurance, you do have to pick a more specific niche. Like you would need to choose one of the three we've talked about and go hard on it. That doesn't mean you won't get the other ones, but the majority of your niche will be whatever, or the majority of your caseload will be that niche. And that, I mean, that positions you as the expert. When you say you want to be an expert, what do you want to be an expert on?
I think I do like helping parents with kids, right? Like I like seeing the kids, but I like helping parents with kids.
Hmm.
I feel a lot less capable maybe of being an expert in like the adult world.
Hmm.
Um, so I can decide. I'm also going to, I had a really hard time getting into that like OCD Foundation training, the BTTI one.
Mhm.
So I'm going to Houston for that next month.
Mhm.
I'm gonna kind of play around with that like OCD with kids and like
Mhm.
all the different ways that presents. And so that's potentially something I could really like niche down.
Oh yeah. And I mean, no matter where you are, there are not enough OCD for kids therapists. Like one of my closest friends' daughter has OCD, and it has been hell trying to
Yeah.
find like truly niched care, people who really know what they're doing with OCD and not just anxiety.
I have had a couple, but I feel like I'm learning on the fly, right? Like
Yeah.
I've read like five or six, but I'm open, like I'm reading the book over the weekend to be like, okay, what am I doing next session? What is this like?
Hmm.
And because I was on wait lists and stuff to get into these things. And so I'm really, I guess part of this like first year for me has been like, I just really want to figure out like how to give good clinical care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Like have a caseload. I'm not a new counselor, but I'm like new to private practice and I just want to be really good at what I'm doing. Like I want to
Yeah.
help. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as far as like kind of marketing at this stage where I'm like going to be a little more niche, but not like moving into like the next level of your program yet, which I forget what it's called. Limitless.
Hmm.
Limitless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that'd be great when you want to switch to OCD if you decide that's what you want to do and like get to the private pay world.
So scary.
Yeah.
Um, so this level of marketing, I was really good on blogs for like probably 8 months, right? I think my
Hmm.
SEO is like pretty good. People can Google me, find me now, right? My
Hmm.
referral basis. Do you have any like social media content ideas? I'm like
Hmm.
feeling like I'm in a total rut. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll
So I
tell you
wouldn't
one
do
thing I
it.
don't do is videos.
Okay. So then it was not worth it to do social media if you're not going to do videos because you're not going to get any leverage.
Don't like myself in videos.
I know. I'm the same way, or I was the same way. I got over it with a lot of exposure.
I don't understand how your skin is so great in them.
Well, thank you. I'm really just using drugstore stuff, but
I mean, same, but that's all I see, and like the shadows on my face, and I can't get lighting right.
oh,
And
it's all lighting. I mean, really, like if this is a desktop, so I can't pick it up, but if I brought it over here, you'd be like, oh, but I'm just in front of a south-facing window. That's all it is. So for you, probably getting the right ring lights if you don't have a south-facing window, um, could make a world of difference. Because from here, your skin looks great. There are shadows because you don't have the lighting. But if it's if it's just about self-judgment, I promise you with enough practice, it goes away. Or it gets quieter, I should say. And then it's like what you're doing matters more to you than what you're beating yourself up with as that quiets.
yeah, and I do feel like I get a lot of referrals from social media, but they're like people I know.
Right.
They're not, and which is a bit like it's a big chunk of my referrals. It's like somebody I went to high school with sees like something that I posted, and
Hmm.
they tell a friend, and they're recommending me in mom chat groups and things like that, which is so nice.
Yeah.
So I do think I get referrals, but it's not coming from like a
Hmm.
wider community of people I don't know. So
I might try, let me find the account to tell you about. I might try you can try faceless reels while you're working on building up your like your courage to be on video. Because being on video is going to make people connect to you 10,000 times more than just something you post. But
it's
um,
self-judgment, but also I don't know what to say to people.
oh, I got you covered with that. Don't worry about that. Let me find this faceless account real quick. Um,
Something called Faceless Reels.
Um, yeah, I mean, there it is. So my friend Julia started on Instagram. The handle is the Flow Brain, all one word. And like sometimes there are some pictures of her or videos of her in the background, but you can't really see her face at all because words are on top of it. And she grew that thing to 28,000 followers, almost 29,000 followers without ever talking directly to the camera. Um, I think, yeah, there's one where she interviewed somebody where both their faces are on there, but um, for the most part, she's not doing what most people do, but the content on the reels are really valuable. So look at her, see if you can model some of that. You can use Canva for the backgrounds. Um,
'Cause
but
those are videos, but
uh,
they're not like
they're not
me.
of you. Yeah. Yeah. So put a trending sound behind it, write some really like helpful, truly niched content on top of the photo and let it go for like a few seconds. I don't know how long hers are because they like looks like about 3 seconds. So then they get a lot of views because people are reading the words and it takes them like, 30 seconds to read the word. So that's 10 views right there with one person. So yeah. Oh, I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
I said I didn't know that's how that worked.
Yeah.
The one person's like 10 views. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I can look into that. I can try that. So truly helpful, truly niched. Am I
Yeah.
doing like what I do in therapy?
hmm
The
Well, you're not
homework
talking
that
about
I'm
like in
giving out?
therapy, but you're like, think about the things you say a lot in therapy. Like, what's something you're always saying to anxious kids?
Usually first session we do this like fire alarm analogy, right?
hmm
Like anxiety is your fire alarm going off. Sometimes there's no smoke, no fire.
Yeah. So you could be like, try this, colon. In my first sessions with clients, with kids, I talk about how anxiety is their fire alarm, that it's just alerting them that something is going on that they need to pay attention to. Um, Try saying it like this, and then put an arrow down in the, or say like, check the caption. And then you can kind of walk a parent through how you explain the fire alarm so that they like that's an actionable thing that they can take away. Don't be afraid to like give away the great things you say in therapy. That's not going to prevent someone from coming to see you. That's going to make them more likely to see you. Because if you're going to give that away on Instagram or Facebook, what are you going to do in session? Um, so when
Very
you think about
helpful.
your anxious adults, when you think about like the teenagers, your ideal parents probably have some empathy for these misbehaving teens, right? Like they're pissed off at them and they want them to act right, but they still love their kid. And so tapping into that empathy and talking about why kids behave in that way sometimes. Um, and why that's so hard for parents and how, they've done everything they knew to do up to this point and they feel like they're failing. Like you can tap into that truth for parents. Um, Thinking about your anxious adults. And I mean, like if your people struggle with perfectionism, for instance, your adults, you can talk about how it's freezing them at work, how if they just were willing to do a shitty first draft of something, it would allow them to make some real progress. Um, because it doesn't have to be great right out of the gate. You can edit it and make it what you need, that kind of thing.
And that you're thinking like could be like there's an introduction to it, but the actual like content is in the comments.
Um, I would put it on the reel for the most part, but to go a little deeper in the comments
Okay.
sometimes. And sometimes you could just be like, what are your thoughts on this? Question mark. Are
Right.
you Is empathy with your misbehaving teen something you struggle with? You're totally human if so, you know? So I would keep a little notepad next to you for sessions and just write down the themes or the phrases you're like, oh yeah, I definitely say that more than once a week. And you'll end up building up content ideas really quickly. Yeah. Oh, it looks like we're up on time. So hopefully that's a good running start for you.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.